Hey guys, welcome back to our channel Mahita Smart Education. Today in this video, we are going to learn about one of the most popular front-end framework, that is Angular. If you are a web developer and want to build a successful website or want to learn one of the best front-end framework that is used by the large organizations like Google, Gmail, Microsoft Xbox, Forbes, PayPal, Wikivan, Upwork, YouTube, and so on, then Angular is the one for you. So today in this video, I'm going to give you the brief description about Angular framework. So without wasting our time, let's move on to our video. Okay, let's start with the question, what is Angular? Angular is a open source framework that is mainly used to develop single page web applications. So you might wonder what is the single page web applications and all. So I will give you a brief description about single page web applications, or SPS. So SPA is a web application or website that interacts with the user by dynamically rewriting the current page rather than loading the entire new page from a server. You might have wonder what is this and all. So for example, if you went to one web application or website, then at some point of time you have to refresh your page, right? So at that time, you may observe in some websites they will, after refreshing the content, so the whole page will be refreshed. And in some other websites or web applications like Gmail or Forbes or PayPal, so if you refresh your content or if you refresh your page, then only the dynamic content which is present in that web page will be changed or reloaded. So that is the main concept here. So in order to give you like clear example, let us take Gmail. So if you observe here, so this is our Gmail web application or website. So if you look at here, see this part and this part, these are the two static parts. So while refreshing also, the same will be there. So if we reload it also, the same will be there. But if you observe here, so this is the dynamic part. So if you reload it, then new mails will be added, or if you delete some mails, then the mails will be deleted. So this is the dynamic part. So we observe some changes, right? So after reloading the page, this part should be changed. So this is the main content in the single page web application. So in web application, what is the part that is dynamically changed, that should be reloaded after refreshing the page. So that is the main concept. Hope you understood. So now let's look at the Angular. So Angular is one of the best framework that creates single page web applications. So Angular is a compound based framework for building scalable web applications, and it is a collection of well integrated libraries that cover a wide variety of features, including routing, form management, client server communication, and many more. And it suits of developer tool to help you develop, build, test, and update your code. So Angular is one of the best framework available nowadays, and that too it is developed by the Google. And let's look at the features that are available in Angular. So it is having data binding and fastest loading. As we see, the single page web applications itself will load fastly, because only we are changing the dynamic part, right? So it is very fast comparing to the other technologies and all. And it uses simplified MVC pattern, that is a model view controller, this pattern. And it is used in cross platforms, like we can use this Angular applications in Android or iOS or desktops also. And it is simple and expressive, and it is speed and performance. As we know, if it is fast, then performance is good, right? So the performance is also good. And maximum users, as it is developed by the Google, we can see how many number of users are there. So maximum numbers of users are using this Angular. And it is flexible development, so we can develop our application flexibly. And now look at the prerequisites before learning Angular. That is, the languages we must know or we must have some knowledge before learning this Angular framework are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and TypeScript also. So if we observe in Angular, the main or the most important language we are using is TypeScript. TypeScript is the superset of JavaScript, and Angular 2 and Angular 10 and all the new versions also using TypeScript heavily. And TypeScript has got a lot of attention because of its ease of use and simplicity. And TypeScript is an open source programming language that is developed and maintained by the Microsoft, and it adds optional static typing to the languages. So we all know that JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. That means we no need to give the type of the variable we are using in the JavaScript, but we need to give at some point of time we need to declare the data type of the variable. So TypeScript adds that static typing to the JavaScript. So this is the main work that TypeScript will do. And now let's look at the versions which are available in Angular. So the first version, that is AngularJs, was developed in 2010, and then Angular 2, 4, 5, and now in 2022 Angular 13 is also there. And now let us look at the difference between AngularJS and Angular. So the official websites of AngularJS and Angular are different. So for the AngularJS, we have to go through https://angularjs.org, and whereas for Angular we have to go to angular.io. This is the official website for Angular. And the architecture of AngularJS is based on MVC or MVW. The architecture of Angular is based on components, as it is primarily architectural characteristics. And AngularJS uses terms, if scope, and controller. And Angular uses a hierarchy of components and directives. AngularJS is based on JavaScript and Angular is based on TypeScript. And whereas there are so many versions are also there, so these are the versions. And now let us look at the differences between Angular and React. So Angular is created or developed by the Google, whereas React is created by the Facebook. And the technology type was component based. So Angular is a component based, as we are saying from earlier, Angular is a component based framework that is using TypeScript, whereas React is a user interface library with a component based architecture using JavaScript. And the data binding in Angular is two-way data binding, and whereas in React it is only one-way data binding, and the size quite large, and since it need to be shipped to the client side, it increases the initial load time, whereas React is a quite small in size, especially when compared with Angular. And the learning curve is quite steep, given the number of features and options you have in Angular, whereas React, it's easy to pick up and learn. Simplicity, Angular is quite complex comparing to React, and React is fairly simple but takes some time to set up a project and configure everything. So these are the differences between Angular and React.js. Now look at the architecture overview of React.js. So in React.js, mainly modules will be there. So in modules, there are components, service, value, and functions, etc. will be there. So these are the modules that we have to consider while knowing or learning about the architecture of Angular. So let's look at what is this module. So generally speaking, module is nothing but a JavaScript or TypeScript code, so which is having functions, variables, classes, etc. So in general, module is like that, but in Angular, so module is the combination of components, directives, and pipes and services. So we can use many modules in Angular. So in Angular, module refers to a place where you can group the components, directives, pipes, and services which are related to the application. And every Angular application have at least one module which is called root module, and its naming convention is app module, and it resides inside the app.module.ts file. So in Angular, if we observe the file structure, and there is one file inside the app, that is app.module.ts file, and in which we can store all the components, directives, and pipes and services, and all the data will be stored in that. And now let's look at what is this component. So if we talk about like module, then we say there are more components are there in one module, right? So what is this component? So components are the building blocks that compose an application. So this is the major part of the development is done, like where we have write the code and all. So inside these components only. So component control the portion of the view in the browser, and components are basically classes that interact with .html file of the component which gets displayed on browser. And every Angular application has at least one component which is root component, and by convention it is app component. So what exactly the component consists of? So a component consists of template, classes and metadata. So template is basically a HTML file, and classes are like TypeScript files, data and methods, code, etc. And metadata is like information and decorator, etc. So what is this template? So templates are like every component has HTML template that describes how that component render, and you define this template either inline or by file path. And Angular, so in Angular there are many files which we use, like src folder. This is the source folder. This is the folder which contains the main code file related to your Angular application. So inside this source folder there is an app folder. So in this is the main folder which we write or we use to manipulate our page and all. So inside the app folder we are having app.component.css, app.component.html, app.component.spec.ts, and app.component.ts, and app.module.ts. So these are the files which are most important, because in .css file we use the style sheets. So the styling which is required for our website will be there in this .css file, and in .html file we use it to write the main theme, like the template file which is used by the Angular to do the data binding. And in spec.ts file, this file is a unit testing file related to app component, and this file is used along with the other unit tests, and it runs from Angular CLI by the command ng test. And app.component.ts, this is the most important TypeScript file which includes the view logic behind the component. And app.module.ts, this is also a TypeScript file which includes all the dependencies for a website. This file is used to define the needed modules to be imported, the components to be declared, and the main component to be bootstrapped. So as we already discussed earlier, the modules which is there in our Angular, that is app.module.ts. Okay, now let us look at some more important files in our Angular application or Angular framework, that is package.json. So this is npm configuration file. It includes details about your websites, packages and dependencies, along with details about your own website being a package itself. And package.json. This is an auto-generated and modified file that gets updated whenever npm does an operation related to node module or package.json. And angular.json, it is very important configuration file related to your Angular application. It defines the structure of your app and includes any settings associated with your applications. Here you can specify environments on this file. Development, production, this is the file where we add bootstrap file to work with Angular 7 or 13, anything. Git ignore, this file is related to source control git. And editor config, and this is simple file which is used to maintain consistency in code editor to organize some basics such as indentation and white spaces. And assets folder, this folder is a placeholder for resource files and which are used in the application such as images, local, like translations, etc. And browser list, this file is used by auto prefixer that adjusts the CSS to support a list of defined browsers. And favicon.ico, This file specifies a small icon that appears next to the browser tab of a website. And index.html, this is the entry file which holds the high level container for the Angular application. And kerma.config.js, this file specifies the config file for the Kerma test runner. Kerma has been developed by the AngularJs team, which can run tests for both AngularJS and Angular 2 plus any version. And main.ts, it is defined in angular.json file, and this is a main ts file that will first run. This file bootstraps, that means starts the app module from app.module.ts, and it can be used to define global configurations. Polyfills.ts. This file is a set of code that can be used to provide compatibility support for older browsers. Like Angular 7 code is written mainly in ES6 plus language specifications, which is getting more adopted in front end development. So since not all browsers support the full ES6 plus specifications, polyfill can be used to cover whatever features missing from a given browser. And style.css, this is a global css file which is used by Angular application. And like that, we are having test.ts file, tsconfig.json file, tsconfig.app.json file, and tsconfig.spec.json file, and environments folder. So these are all the important files which are present in our like Angular thing. So this is all about the brief description of our Angular framework. Hope you find this video useful. If you find it useful, then please do like, share and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel Mahita's Smart Education. Thank you so much.